Cop shoots black woman at traffic stop unaware she is a U.S. Army colonel before we dive in this story. Hit the comments and tell us your city or country. Let's see how far this story reaches. The flashing blue lights were supposed to mean safety. The siren was just part of protocol that night, should have ended like any other. A short stop, a quick check, and she'd be home. But for Colonel Angela Monroe, it turned into something else. Something terrifying. She followed every rule. Her hands were visible. Her voice was calm. She showed no threat, but the officer saw her skin color before he saw her rank, and with one sudden shout, a gun was raised, and a single shot changed everything. Angela Monroe dropped to the asphalt, blood soaking through her uniform pants. Her military ID tag still hung from her neck untouched when backup arrived and checked her wallet. Silence fell. The officer's face went pale. The radios stopped buzzing. This wasn't a regular traffic stop anymore. This was a national shame. Angela had just returned from a 9-month deployment overseas. She wasn't wearing her dress blues, just jogging pants, a hoodie, and her military sweatshirt, her tags tucked under the fabric, her duffel bag thrown casually in the back seat. It was late. She had landed just an hour earlier and was finally driving back to her neighborhood, thinking about her own bed. Some warm food and silence. She had led soldiers, negotiated under fire, and stood firm in war zones, but nothing could prepare her for what happened just 5 blocks from her house. The officer pulled her over for a missing taillight. That's all, just a broken light. She pulled to the curb, gently kept her hands firmly on the wheel, and rolled down her window like any careful driver would. Her voice was steady. "Yes, officer." But something in the man's eyes told a different story. He wasn't calm, he wasn't curious. He was loud, nervous, and visibly agitated. His hand hovered near his gun like he expected trouble. He didn't ask questions. He barked commands when he asked for ID. She nodded and said it was in her pocket. But the moment she slightly moved, he shouted again, louder this time. "Don't move." Angela froze. Her hands were still up. "My license is in my pocket," she said clearly, still not moving, but his voice rose again. "You're resisting. Show me your hands." They were already out already, still already shaking her heart. Raced. This wasn't a war zone. There was no enemy in sight. But she felt more afraid now than in the middle of combat in war. Her uniform brought respect here. It made her a target, a threat, a mistake waiting to happen. She turned her head slightly to speak to clarify. The officer stepped back, then pulled the trigger. Bang, pain ripped through her body. She slumped toward the door, blood running fast. The pavement felt cold as she hit it, her vision starting to blur. She could hear the officer's voice, now panicked and shaky, calling for backup. She was reaching. He stammered. There was a threat, but there wasn't. There never was. Within minutes, more squad cars pulled up. One officer knelt beside her, searching her jacket for ID. The moment he saw the tags, he stopped. "Wait, she's military." Full bird Colonel Angela Monroe. Silence. The officer who had fired the shot turned ghost white. The radios went quiet. Angela lay there, still bleeding. Her strength, fading her blood on the concrete, told the real story. It asked the question that no one could answer. How did this happen? She was rushed to the hospital, critical condition, but alive. Barely. News spread like wildfire. A black woman. A colonel shot by a police officer during a traffic stop because he didn't recognize calm. He didn't recognize command. He didn't recognize her. Public outrage exploded. News crews lined up outside the hospital. The police chief issued a formal statement. The officer was placed on leave, but Angela said nothing to the press. Not yet. She had one question running through her mind on repeat. If I can survive enemy fire,
Why am I bleeding out here, unarmed, in my own country? It wasn't just about rank, not really. It wasn't about badges or uniforms or medals. This was about something deeper, a system trained to fear before it understands a system so broken that it pulled the trigger before seeing the truth. Angela survived barely, and when she recovered enough to speak, she stood tall at a press conference. Scars visible, pain in her eyes, but her voice steady. She didn't call for revenge. She called for something harder, something braver. I'm not here because I outranked the bullet, she said. I'm here because I got lucky, but luck should never decide who gets to go home.
Her words echoed across the country. Her story went viral. Communities protested, lawmakers took notice, new bills were drafted in Congress, focused on police training, de-escalation, and accountability, all in her name. But Angela didn't stop there. She returned to service, but not the kind with salutes and medals. Not anymore. Her new mission was for those who don't wear uniforms, those who don't have ranks to protect them. She spoke at school, town halls, and Senate hearings. She pushed for reform. She demanded change, not just for herself, but for everyone whose skin might make them a suspect before they even speak. Because next time it might not be a colonel, it might be a teacher, a student, a mother, a son. Someone who doesn't get the chance to explain, to reach for ID to come home. Angela's wounds may have healed, but the message still bleeds through every word she shares. Respect should not depend on a title, and safety should never depend on luck. Her story is more than a headline. It's a warning, a lesson, a call to look deeper, listen closer, and act. Before another life is lost to fear and misunderstanding, if you felt something while hearing this story, if it made you pause and think, then don't let this moment end here. Subscribe to the Story Hub for more powerful and emotional stories that shine a light on truth. Justice and the voices too often ignored, press the bell icon so you never miss a new story. And tell us in the comments, what would you change if you had the power? Because change starts with awareness. And stories like Angela's must never be forgotten.